It honestly feels like the sport is standing at the edge of two huge moments that could shape everything we talk about over the next few seasons. One story is about the future of a familiar face who's been part of some unforgettable battles, while the other takes us to one of the most iconic weekends on the entire NASCAR calendar, where history, huge money, and major changes are all about to collide. These aren't just random headlines. One of them could completely change the future of one of the biggest rides in the Cup Series, and the other could have fans glued to every single lap at one of the most legendary tracks in all of motorsports. And trust me, both stories have a lot more going on beneath the surface than most people realize. So today, we're breaking down two major NASCAR stories that every fan needs to know about. And I think by the end of this video, you'll understand why everyone around the garage is talking about them. And before we jump in, if you enjoy honest NASCAR discussions and want to be part of this community from the very beginning, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like button and subscribe. The first story today is one that's honestly difficult to talk about because it's the kind of announcement that reminds all of us that these drivers are human beings before they're race car drivers. Alex Bowman has officially announced that he will retire from full-time NASCAR Cup Series competition after the 2027 season. That means he'll remain behind the wheel of the legendary No. 48 Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports through next season. But after that, one of the sport's most recognizable drivers will step away from full-time racing. At first glance, this feels shocking. Bowman is only 33 years old, an age when most Cup Series drivers are still considered to be right in the middle of their prime. Usually, when we hear retirement news, we're talking about drivers approaching their 40s or even beyond. That's what makes this announcement hit differently. But once you hear everything he's been dealing with physically, it starts to make a lot more sense. If you've followed Bowman's career from the beginning, you know nothing has ever come easy for him. He fought for every opportunity he got, eventually earning a seat at Hendrick Motorsports and then taking on one of the toughest jobs imaginable by succeeding seven-time Cup Series champion Jimmie Johnson in the famous No. 48 Chevrolet. Those were enormous shoes to fill. Replacing a legend is never easy, especially someone like Jimmie Johnson, whose legacy with that car is one of the greatest in NASCAR history. There was pressure every single weekend, and plenty of people wondered whether anyone could carry that number forward. Instead of trying to be another Jimmie Johnson, Bowman built his own identity. He became one of Hendrick Motorsports' most dependable drivers, earned multiple Cup Series victories, stayed competitive throughout NASCAR's next-gen era, and quietly became one of the most respected veterans in the garage. But behind the scenes, his body was paying a much bigger price than most fans realized. The first major setback came during the 2022 season, when Bowman suffered a concussion that forced him to miss 5 Cup Series races. Concussions are never something to take lightly, especially in modern NASCAR, where the physical demands inside these race cars continue to increase. Missing those races was already a major challenge, but unfortunately, it turned out to be only the beginning. Then came 2023, and another devastating injury. While competing in a sprint car event, Bowman was involved in a crash that left him with a fractured back. That injury changed everything. Even after returning to competition, Bowman has explained that the fracture developed into a chronic condition. It isn't something that simply healed and disappeared. Instead, it continued causing pain during everyday life and throughout race weekends, becoming something he had to manage constantly. Most of us only see drivers on Sundays, climbing into the car and competing for hundreds of miles. What we don't see are the countless hours spent in rehabilitation, treatment, recovery sessions, and simply trying to get through daily life while dealing with lingering pain. Then came what was arguably the biggest turning point of all during the 2026 season. Bowman began experiencing severe episodes of vertigo, dizziness, and nausea. Naturally, doctors launched extensive medical evaluations because those symptoms can point to several different conditions. At first, many believed the issue was related to an inner ear disorder. That would have been serious enough by itself. But after specialists completed additional testing, they reached a different conclusion. They determined that Bowman's vertigo was actually connected to his previous spinal injury. According to the medical evaluations, the repeated high G-forces generated inside a NASCAR Cup Series car during heavy braking, cornering, and acceleration were triggering those neurological episodes. That's a frightening diagnosis for anyone. For a professional race car driver, it's life-changing. Doctors reportedly advised Bowman that removing those repeated physical stresses from his routine would dramatically reduce the likelihood of future attacks and give his nervous system the opportunity to stabilize. When you hear that, it's easier to understand why this decision wasn't really about giving up racing. It was about protecting his long-term health before things became even more serious. Bowman also made it clear that the physical injuries weren't the only reason behind this decision. He talked openly about the emotional side of being a full-time Cup Series driver. Years of non-stop travel, constant pressure, weekly competition, rehabilitation after injuries. Always wondering whether the next accident might be the one that changes your life forever. That kind of lifestyle eventually wears on anyone. Instead of racing well into his late 30s or 40s, Bowman said he wants to step away while he's still relatively young. His goals after racing are surprisingly simple. He wants to recover physically. He wants to enjoy a normal daily routine again. He wants to spend more time with the people he loves. He wants to build a family. And he wants to experience the kind of everyday freedom that the NASCAR schedule rarely allows. Honestly, that's something I think every fan can respect. These drivers give so much to this sport, and sometimes it's easy to forget how much they sacrifice away from the racetrack. The good news is that this isn't goodbye just yet. Bowman confirmed he'll remain with Hendrick Motorsports throughout the 2027 NASCAR Cup Series season, giving fans one final full-time campaign to enjoy. Every win will feel a little bigger. Every playoff battle will carry extra meaning. Every milestone will become part of what will essentially be a farewell tour. Many people around the garage already expect Hendrick Motorsports to celebrate Bowman's career throughout that season, recognizing not only his victories, but also the resilience he showed while fighting through injuries that might have ended many other careers much sooner. Of course, the moment this announcement became official, another huge question immediately surfaced. Who takes over the No. 48 Chevrolet in 2028? This is one of the most prestigious rides in NASCAR, so you know Hendrick Motorsports will take this decision incredibly seriously. The biggest name being discussed is Connor Zetlish. A lot of people throughout the industry believe he's the favorite. His incredible road course ability, his versatility across different types of race cars, and the speed he's already shown have made him one of the brightest young talents in American motorsport. Many insiders believe Hendrick has been preparing him for a future Cup Series opportunity, making the No. 48 a very logical destination. Another driver receiving plenty of attention is Corey Day. He's developed rapidly through Hendrick Motorsports driver development program and has impressed in multiple racing disciplines. Because of his steady progression and strong relationship with the organization, he's viewed as another realistic candidate to make the jump into NASCAR's Premier Series. Then there's Rajah Caruth. While he's considered more of a long shot compared to the other two names, he continues to receive strong support from Rick Hendrick, and his development has been impossible to ignore. If he keeps progressing over the next 2 seasons, he could absolutely put himself into serious consideration for one of the biggest opportunities in the sport. No matter who eventually gets that seat, replacing Alex Bowman won't simply be about filling a vacancy. It'll be about continuing the legacy of one of NASCAR's most iconic car numbers. Bowman's career has always been defined by perseverance. He overcame setbacks, he battled through injuries, he carried enormous expectations after replacing a legend. And now, instead of letting his body make the decision for him later, he's choosing to walk away on his own terms. As difficult as it is to imagine the No. 48 without Alex Bowman after the 2027 season, there's something admirable about seeing an athlete prioritize his health, his future, and his family while he still has the chance. Now, let's turn our attention to our second story, because one of the biggest weekends on the NASCAR calendar has officially arrived. The spotlight is now on the legendary Indianapolis Motor Speedway, where the Brickyard 400 returns to the famous 2.5-mile oval, and this year's event carries even more importance than usual. Winning the Brickyard 400 has always been one of the greatest accomplishments in stock car racing. Every driver dreams about kissing the yard of bricks, because doing that puts your name alongside some of the biggest legends this sport has ever seen. But this weekend isn't only about tradition, it's also about a $1 million prize. Sunday's race will determine the champion of NASCAR's inaugural in-season challenge, giving this already historic event another incredible layer of pressure. After weeks of head-to-head, bracket-style competition, only 8 drivers remain alive in the tournament. Every position on track matters because beating your bracket opponent could mean walking away with one of the biggest bonus payouts of the entire season. That's what makes this race so fascinating. Drivers aren't just thinking about winning the Brickyard 400. They're also keeping one eye on where their tournament opponent is running. It's two battles happening at the same time. Indianapolis has always demanded perfection. Its four flat corners punish even the smallest mistakes. Passing opportunities are limited, making qualifying, pit strategy, and tire management absolutely critical. One small error can ruin an entire afternoon. Teams will begin the weekend with practice on Friday, July 24th, where they'll gather their first data on race setups, tire wear, and long run speed. Flag drops for the Brickyard 400, deciding both the race winner and the first ever in-season challenge champion. Weather could become another major factor. Forecasts are calling for hot summer conditions, meaning teams will closely monitor tire degradation, engine temperatures, and driver hydration throughout the weekend. Speaking of tires, Goodyear has introduced a revised right rear tire specifically designed for Indianapolis' unique flat corners. That means engineers and crew chiefs will spend practice gathering as much information as possible to understand how the new tire behaves over long runs. If tire wear becomes worse than expected, strategy could end up deciding the race just as much as outright speed. And there was another major announcement during race week that deserves attention. NASCAR confirmed that, beginning with the New Hampshire race weekend in August, the Cup Series will adopt a single 50-minute practice session with the entire field on track together. That replaces the split group practice format used in recent seasons. According to NASCAR, the goal is to give teams more uninterrupted track time while allowing drivers to experience realistic traffic conditions, similar to what they'll face during the race. Crew chiefs should also benefit by having additional time to evaluate tire wear, fuel strategy, and chassis adjustments before qualifying. The change won't begin until New Hampshire, but it's already become one of the biggest discussion topics throughout the garage this weekend. When you put everything together, this Brickyard 400 feels absolutely massive. You've got one of NASCAR's most historic tracks, one of the sport's most prestigious trophies, the conclusion of the inaugural in-season challenge, a $1 million bonus on the line, new technical challenges with revised tires, hot weather, creating even more uncertainty, and a major competition format change waiting just around the corner. By the time Sunday night arrives, one driver will have added his name to Brickyard history. Another will become the first ever in-season challenge champion, and will be one step closer to the most important stretch of the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series season. It's shaping up to be the kind of weekend NASCAR fans wait all year for, and I honestly can't wait to see how it all unfolds. If you enjoyed today's update, let me know your thoughts in the comments. How do you feel about Alex Bowman's decision to retire after the 2027 season? And who do you think wins the Brickyard 400 and takes home that $1 million in-season challenge prize?